This conference will now be recorded.
Brad, you ready to get going? You want to wait just a few minutes?
I'm just double checking to see if we have a quorum. It looks like it. I just wanted to make sure. If you give me a couple minutes. It looks like we do have a quorum. So whenever you're ready to begin.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending this afternoon's joint transportation meeting. Brad has eloquently placed on his shared screen the agenda for today, and that was also emailed to all of us some time ago. Moving forward here, we can move right into item number 2 to see if we have any public comments, or are there comments from folks that may be on that haven't been on in the past that would like to speak. This would be the time to do that. So either raise your hand or put a note in the chat, and we can look at it and talk about it from there. So if there's anybody that would like to speak under this section, feel free to do so.
I got a quick question. Am I supposed to be able to see everybody's face on here? Because the only picture I see is me and the paperwork that you have.
There should be, excuse me, if you can see on your screen up near the top of the, this might say something like everyone or
it does.
Who's talking. If you click it so it says everyone, you should see all the other screens. If you want to get just one person at a time, you do the who's talking.
I hit everyone.
I hit everyone, and I still don't have. All I have is myself on the screen. Now, on the top left corner, it has my wife's name on it. So am I supposed to tap that one?
No.
Yeah, that's how you signed into the meeting.
Okay.
You don't hit that. Well, you don't hit that one.
He just said that's how you sign into it.
On the right-hand side of the screen, there's also like a bar that you can drag in and out on the right-hand side that you might be able to drag closer to the center of your screen to expand on the people. Maybe that helps.
I don't want to hold you up. Just go ahead and start. I don't need to see your lovely faces.
Is there any other public comments for today's meeting? I don't see any, so we'll move forward to item number 3, which would be approval of the July 13th minutes, 2022. Those also were sent to you in an email. Is there a motion in the group to accept those as presented, or are there changes that needed to be made?
I make the motion to accept it.
Motion's been made. Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Sounds like it was unanimous. Moving forward to next item, the Montachusett Regional Transportation Plan update. And is that, Brad, you're going to take that for us?
This will be Brian and Sherry.
Oh, Brian, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can start off on this. I know we haven't met as a JTC since July, but we're continuing our discussion on the RTP vision statement. The RTP, as I had mentioned at previous meetings, this will be ongoing through the next year or so, and hopefully have an endorsed plan in July. We started discussing the vision statement in June, I believe, and with the intent of maybe simplifying the statement that we had in our 2020 plan without really losing any of the substance of it. So we came in July to the JTC and the MPO with a proposed vision draft number 1, which we discussed at the meetings. And since then, we've had some feedback from both groups. And in August, the MPO discussed what we came forward with draft vision number 2, which reads as following. The Montachusett Metropolitan Planning Organization seeks to provide a multimodal transportation system that is safe, secure, efficient, and affordable to all individuals while supporting and encouraging environmentally sustainable economic development, growth, and revitalization of the Montachusett region. So this draft vision number 2 was to reflect some of the feedback that we got in July. Basically, all of the feedback that we got was to include some environmental language within the vision statement. That was inadvertently omitted from our first draft. We didn't want to leave that out per se, but we do feel it's important to include in there. So this vision draft number 2 was presented to the MPO in August, and this is what they accepted at that meeting. However, the JTC didn't meet in August, so we as a group didn't get to the chance to review the vision statement. We have had some additional feedback since we mailed out the information on this meeting and this handout last week. So what we have today is a review of what we're calling vision draft number 3. And basically the feedback that we got last week, essentially it suggested that we add the word inclusionary towards the beginning of the statement and drop reference to growth towards the end of the statement. So what that might look like reads as follows. The Montachusett Metropolitan Planning Organization seeks to provide a multimodal, inclusionary transportation system that is safe, secure, efficient, affordable to all individuals while supporting and encouraging environmentally sustainable economic development, omitting growth, and revitalization in the Montachusett region. So we're basically presenting the suggestion to the group today, this version 3 specifically, that omits the word growth and adds the word inclusionary. So if there's any discussion on this, any feedback at all we can get from the group, that would be great.
Brad, this is Dick Mackey in Sterling. What would the meaning of inclusionary include?
So perhaps feel free to step in if you're one of the people that made the suggestion. That would be helpful. I know there was a reference to there being inclusionary zoning as a planning phrase. There wasn't necessarily that much narrative as to why such a suggestion would be made, but perhaps discussion today would be able to sort of iron out why these suggestions are here. And this is just a draft vision that we put out as an example to include these suggestions.
I have a question on that is, if the word wasn't in there, what does it mean? Does it exclude anything if the word's not in there?
So I believe the point is sort of double stated. So in transportation, we say multimodal that means including all modes, pedestrians, cyclists, of course, automobiles, trains, transit, what have you. So I'm not sure what the point of having inclusionary as well is. I don't know if there's any feedback from anyone else.
This is Veronica Kell from Townsend. When I see inclusionary, I think ADA compatible. Is that what the thought is on adding that word?
Yeah, this is Beth from Townsend. I was the one that suggested that. And yeah, that would be more towards including everyone. And I know that's kind of stated, but I'm looking at potentially catching everyone, all, the multitude of different riders and users of the system. So.
But isn't that implicit already in the laws?
Well, it's more, if I look up the definition of inclusionary, it says designed or intended to provide equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those having physical or intellectual disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. I kind of like that definition, but again, if it's too restrictive, I just like the tone of it. I think that's what we're reaching to do. So I just throwing the word out there for a suggestion. And it is used in zoning, inclusionary zoning, inclusionary housing. So it's a newer term, but that was a thought behind it.
Would it be applicable to add in the word "and"? So it states seeks to provide a multimodal and inclusionary transportation system. That way you're sort of breaking up, you're not assuming it's part of that multimodal. You're separating it slightly to have it stand alone as inclusionary transportation system.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that would seem to sort of be a good addition, just that one word, and inclusionary. Is there any feedback on omitting the word growth from the vision statement?
Well, I made that suggestion as well, and I did think that it read better without it. And I assumed the term growth was kind of synonymous with, the development, the word development. So I just suggested that be removed, but that's again open to suggestions and other thoughts. I thought it read better.
This is Veronica Kell, also Townsend. I guess my thought is my question is, by eliminating the word growth, do we eliminate as part of the mission to expand the system should need be?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, if you're referring about growth of the system, yeah.
And because the comma was there, I didn't think of it in terms of development.
Okay, maybe there's an adjective there then that we could use. A system development of the system. You're going to expand the system. We're assuming the system will always be expanded Is that what we assume, or?
Well, you might say sustainable economic development, comma, systematic growth and revitalization.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Mhm.
The systematic could refer to both the transportation network, zoning, so on.
And I think our original intent, and this vision statement is derived from previous ones, it wasn't necessarily to promote growth per se in the region. It just sort of like to capture, what type of growth we would try to sort of encourage when it did happen. It's just such a wide, it's a large region with many different communities that have different goals and stuff like that. So,
And maybe the word change somehow might be better, because it's not necessarily always going to be growing. But I mean, I totally agree with revitalization. But growth, yeah, that's a hard one to assume, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess it's going to happen based on population and whatnot, but I don't know. Economic development. Yeah.
Let's divide this up. I completely agree with putting in the word "and" prior to the word inclusionary. I can definitely live with that. I can also live with the word growth in there or out. But let's just divide it at least so that we can start to zero in on this. Does everybody agree with after the word modal, adding the word "and" inclusionary?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm good.
Yes.
okay, so we'll certainly make that change going forward.
And again,
No, I guess it's also, so we do want to sort of move on from the vision statement at some point, but it's never, it's not going to be set in stone after today. As I mentioned, we'll be working on the document for several months ahead. So if there's need to circle back and revisit the vision statement as the plan takes shape, that's always possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably suggest we leave the growth in and leave it up for consideration. So if someone afterwards has something that I think makes it more specific or more practical, we can then add it in at that point. And like Brian says, this until the document's fully endorsed, it's a draft document, so we can come back to it. Excuse me.
So are we good, Brian, to move
Yeah, well, I
forward
guess,
off of this task?
Yeah, and I have a few other items within the RTP as well. So I guess just to wrap this discussion up, as I mentioned, it's not set in stone, but we'll present this going forward, the NPO, hopefully briefly. We don't want to spend too much time on the vision statement. There's so much else to do. But we certainly encourage additional comments or suggestions. They've been very helpful so far, and this is our chance to change this every 4 years. So it's important to look at it and get feedback. So we thank you for that. Moving forward, next steps are to develop our goals, objectives, and strategies. And in the handouts are our vision, goals, objectives, and strategies section from the 2020 plan. And the point of having this in the handout is just to basically get people familiar with how these concepts play off of each other in terms of the RTP. And just like the vision statement, I think the staff, what we plan on doing with these is basically reviewing them. It's not something that we think that it's necessary to reinvent the wheel or completely change. Every 4 years when we update these plans, it's important to have some continuity and carry goals forward and sort of have more of a clear vision instead of starting from scratch every year. And we'll go over this more in detail at a later meeting. We'll draft we'll have a draft ready for review, and we'll discuss sort of what the changes that we suggest are, and much like the vision statement, we'll seek feedback on these as well. But just as an overview of these, goals for the purpose of the RTP are more general statements of what we wish to accomplish in the plan. For example, in 2020, goal number 1 is to improve and maintain safety and security. So that's just a general statement. The objectives are specific items to help achieve these goals. So an example of that are on goal 1, reduce the number and severity of vehicular crashes within the region across all roads. So that's an example of an objective. Whereby strategies are actions taken to accomplish the goals. For example, to promote and identify projects that are designed to address high crash locations and prioritize the implementation. And I'll more clearly define what goals, objectives, and strategies are when we discuss it in the future. But this is the draft we're going off of is the 2020 plan, and it's pretty long. The goals, objectives, and strategies. So our next step as a staff is to go over these and see if we can improve upon them or possibly clarify any, as well as thinking of all the events that have happened in the last 4 years since we've done the plan, if there's anything that we can add to it. So in the last sort of section on this portion of the RTP are performance measures. And we don't have a handout of performance measures, but basically those are quantifiable measures that we'll look at that determine whether we're meeting our goals. For example, in the 2020 RTP, one of the goals was to improve system preservation. And the performance measure under that particular goal was to improve the overall condition of the pavement network in the region. And that's a quantifiable type of measure. We actually go out and we have a pavement management system that identifies the pavement conditions in the federal aid eligible network in the region, so we can see if our overall network has improved or not, so we can see if we're meeting our goals. The performance measures we plan on taking more of a deeper dive into as compared to last few plans. We'd really like to weed out any performance measures that we've identified in the past that haven't been as effective as of meeting our goals, and seeing what new data is available to us to perhaps create new performance measures. So again, at a future meeting, after we wrap up this vision, goals, objectives, and strategies portion of it, we'll probably take a deeper look into performance measures, and that really determines whether we're meeting the goals set forth in the plan or not. So the last part of this is the survey, and we presented this in July as well. We haven't had much feedback on our survey after presenting the NPO and the JTC, but we still welcome feedback. We plan on getting this finalized as soon as possible and up on our website, as well as possibly distributing paper copies to places like libraries and senior centers and the like. We've tweaked this from our last version. Basically, we wanted to keep it simple. We didn't want to scare anyone away from taking the survey. We wanted to sort of collect good data that we can actually use in the report. So, you know, it's relatively short. There's 13 questions, but that's for good reason. We want to be able to actually use this data that we have and in the coming weeks, we'll be finalizing this. So if you'd like to review the survey and provide any feedback, you can always reach out to us. We did review this as a group in July, so this hasn't changed since then, but we'd like to wrap it up and move forward and distribute it and have it available on our website in the next few weeks. So that's basically what's going on with the RTP right now. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Any questions for Brian at this time?
Yeah, Beth Baxman from Townsend. Just a quick question. I wonder if you might consider adding one question to the survey, and that is to gather awareness of what services are available in your community. Questions such as, are you aware, do you know if you're an MBTA service community, or something like that, just to understand how the general public, how aware they are of the services that are currently available in their town. Just a thought. Is that in there?
I don't believe we have a question like that in there. It would certainly be useful because, everyone kind of looks at these things in a different view. So.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, I guess try to figure out the best way to word that.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting question to add in there, just to see we can get better understanding of what the communities have and how they're telling people about their services and what's available. It'll help us out too. So we'll kick that around and see if we can come up with an appropriate type question that'll get us some decent feedback.
Another thing about this survey is we ask what zip code they're from. So say if we have a list of services possibly available and we match it up with their zip code and they're not aware of, for example, a commuter rail line going to a town or something like that, we'd be able to tell. So yeah, we'll have to figure out, I think that would be really useful to sort of have an idea of what people are aware of out there in terms of services.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Moving forward to the next item, Safe Streets for All federal grant program. We're going to have an update on the application process.
Okay, that's mine. Brian, do you have the handout I put in the folder? Okay. Yep, start with that. Back in July, let me go back. The Safe Streets for All is a new program developed under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL. And it basically makes funding available over the next 5 years for communities to address, safety issues and so forth. There are funds for implementing programs and strategies and projects, but before you can apply for an implementation grant, you need to have an action plan in place. So the first step is to develop that action plan, and that's one of the funding categories, one of the projects you can apply for under the Safe Streets for All program. So we sent a survey out to our communities back in the beginning of mid-July or so, asking them, giving them some information on the program, asking them if they had a safety action plan, and if they were aware of this, and if they were thinking of applying for this program, either to do a new safety action plan or apply for implementation funds or so forth. And we also asked if they're interested in this, would they be willing to join in an application with the Montachusett Regional Planning Commission? So if you could scroll down a little bit, Brian. The letter tried to outline some of the information that's in the program and gave them, 3 or 4 questions just to answer and sign off on. And so we sent this out, again, I said, to 22 communities. We followed up a couple of times to get some more feedback. And next please, Brian. This is the table of our the responses we got back. So basically, we had some 17 responses back from all of our communities. You can see them listed here. I've got, if they responded, whether they responded as they were interested in being a joint applicant or a partner in the process. The differences between them just have to do with whether you want to apply for funds on your own or not and so forth. But we assumed everyone would want to be a joint applicant. So that would mean that at some point, if we get the funding, there'll be an agreement to be signed by the communities. We asked for who would be the contact person at that community to address issues and talk about this program. And first, I'm going to apologize. I wanted to have a meeting with everybody on this list too beforehand to give them an update status, but this will have to do for now. I've been trying to limit my write-up for the application that is driving me a little bit crazy. They give me a 300-word limit on a narrative. So, but the whole survey, again, this is the response we've gotten. We've also went and looked at the complete street situations for our communities so that we can provide some information to them in the application. And then Sherry just recently updated this too with some safe routes to school information. So we've got most of our communities are responding back to us. We've asked for letters of support. We have a sort of like a community or regional wide letter of support that's gone out to the communities for their individual signatures, and hopefully that'll be in the next 24 hours so that we can include it with our report. It's going through e-signature as a PDF document. We did get individual letters of support from Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, Athol, and Sterling, so we'll be including them all in one. And then as we were expanding this and going on with this, we talked with George and the people at MART, and they indicated they are also willing to sign on as a joint applicant for this program. So we've added them as an applicant, and we'll be discussing them in the application process with the US DOT. And the thing is, with the adding MART, we have different service areas. We've got the 22 communities in North Central Mass. MART has basically the same, it has 18 of the communities that we have, and then they have 6 additional communities that are outside of our region. So if you could scroll forward, Brian. No, keep going. There should be more. I had one big PDF put in there. You didn't see that?
That's all I have, Brad.
Okay. Give me
we can
1
try
second.
to-
I can grab it.
Maybe if I try to bring it in from.
Yeah. All right, let me. I thought I had gotten it in there. Let me see if I can find my. No, that's not it.
It might be down on this handout, Brad.
All right.
This map here.
Yeah, there should be. Yeah, and I tried to combine all into one. There it is with the 8 pages. That should be it. Yep. Okay, so if you scroll back 1 page just for a second, let me see. All right, here's the information. As I mentioned, we have this has the latest updated chart with the safe routes to school information, and it has the 6 communities in MART region that we will incorporate into the study. So the next handout, the next page, is a map of what will be the study area or the jurisdiction that will be covered by this application. You can see it's all of our region, and then Barry, Hardwick, Bolton, Stowe, Boxborough, Littleton are added to it. So this is the area we're going for, and we'll be using the 2019 ACS or American Community Survey data, census data. That's what's required by the US DOT for this application. One of the other requirements of it is to identify fatal incidences in the study area. So the next map is from The site they cite, it's called FARS. The acronym I forget. It's a federal accident records system on the US DOT site, and you can go in and search for fatal accidents or other type of motor vehicle accidents in certain. You can identify the community or the location that you're looking at and get this information. This is the fatal accidents that have occurred in this jurisdiction between 2016 and 2020. There's approximately 85 accidents, or there are 85 accidents that were identified. You can see them all as the red dots. The other thing on this map, it's really hard to see, but here in Fitchburg and down in Clinton, there's a census tract. It's sort of orangish. Those are designated by the federal government as underserved census tracts. They have a certain criteria for, what do they call it, underserved populations or areas. It's based upon whether they're economically disadvantaged, transportation disadvantage, health disadvantage, resiliency disadvantage, environmental disadvantage. They've got a number of categories. And if you meet 4 or more of those categories, you're an underserved census tract. And it's all broken down by census tracts on the federal level. We only have 2 in this jurisdiction, and one is in Fitchburg and one is in Clinton. We're about 8,300 individuals. So that's part of the identification process of this application. So this map will be part of the overall application for the US DOT program. So since that time when we developed these maps and this information, we've been working on addressing the questions in the application. I will say US DOT does not have a particularly easy to understand notice of funding opportunity, and their instructions are not 100% clear on what they're looking for. But after banging around for a while, we've got some answers, and we're down now to just putting a narrative together. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, they're restricting the narrative to 300 words, so it's getting a little difficult to comb down. The next one, Brian. So the next thing we had to again talk about was the budget. How much money are we going to apply for? So initially, I had determined a budget of approximately of taking 24 to 30 months to do the project. I thought that'd be a nice time frame to just calculate and get a consultant on board to do all of this work. There is the 20% local match, as we mentioned in the survey letters, and we asked if communities are interested in being able to give us some in-kind match or cash match or so forth, because in-kind is allowable. So with those parameters, I developed a budget based on asking for $750,000 from US DOT. So 20% match for that would require a match of $187,500. So initially I was looking at a $937,500 grant application. And speaking with Mart and the fiscal here at MRPC, we identified some potential local matching sources that could help us meet that 20% match. So on the MRPC side, we looked at our local yearly assessment and trying to take $6,000 per year for that from that assessment. So that would be a total of $12,000 as a match on the local assessments. And then there's the District Local Technical Assistance Program, or DLTA. We get funds every year from the state to do certain local technical assistance projects. The Comprehensive and Planning Department sends out notices every year, twice a year, asking for input from communities on what they'd like to see done. We figure we could ask for $12,000 per year from those DLTA funds, so that would be a $24,000 match there. And then Mart has indicated they're willing to put in $6,000 over the life of the program, so $3,000 per year. So you can see it's still going to be a deficit somewhere, whether it's in kind or so forth. So we were talking about that. But then on September 9th, we got a letter or an email from Mass DOT, and they notified us, as well as all the other RPAs, that they're intending to fund the 20% local match for these applications. So as such, we're able to revise the final budget, and we can, haven't notified all the communities yet, but this is serving as some of the notification, that we'll not be looking for any funds or in-kind match as of right now to meet that 20% requirement. So if you scroll up just a little, Brian. Yeah, come back just a little. So this is the, scroll down just a little bit. Start with revised final budget. Come up a little more. Okay, so we revised the final budget this way. On the MRPC side, we'll be putting in 36,000 from the DLTA and the local assessments. MART will be putting in 6,000, and Mass DOT is going to be kicking in $187,500. I felt we could have zeroed out our match and MART's match, but I thought, why don't we just leave those funds in there and exceed the 20% and see if that buys us any brownie points with the application process. So that gets us to about 229,500 as the local match. So the whole revised budget will now be, I just got to pull it up a little higher for me, is now we'll be applying for 750,000 in the SS4A funds, 229,500 in the local match, for a total grant of $979,500. So that's be the final number we'll be applying for. The deadline for application information is tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We should be able to meet that with no problem. And then the last one you see here is just a copy of the letter we got from Mass DOT. They sent us a letter of support for the application that we can include with our submittal to US DOT. So as basically as we stand right now, I'm on the final leg of putting the full narrative together. I need to log online and upload that information along with some attachments and links to existing projects and reports we've done, and hopefully it'll answer the questions that they're looking for, and we can then wait to see if we'll get approved for funding. The estimated timeline is probably the end of the year or beginning of January to see if we can get a notice. Excuse me. Oh well. So yeah, that's where we stand right now. The application will go in tomorrow, and we'll wait to see by the end of the year if they give us this award. If they do, we anticipate around February or so, maybe we'll start the process of looking to hire a consultant. They'll come out and work in putting the plan together. They'll be outreaching to all of our communities. We'll have a sort of a committee that comprised of all of our participants to work with the consultant and work with us to get this project together. And after 2 years, we should have a action plan in place that will be acceptable to the federal government. We can then have communities or ourselves or other individuals apply for some of the implementation grants, which may include strategies, funding programs, some projects, and so forth to implement to help reduce fatalities in the region. That's all I have for right now. Are there any questions?
Yeah, quickly, Beth Faxon from Townsend. Where MART is now a joint applicant and Townsend is not currently a member of MART, will Townsend have the same benefits if in fact the grant is received?
Yeah, because Townsend's a member of MRPC, so you're a full-fledged applicant, joint applicant in the program. We're not going to distinguish between MART and the other communities. It was simply, I thought it would be better for us if we brought on board a transit authority, since they are an acceptable applicant on their own. And I think it just bolsters our application by having them as a joint partner to us. And that way we're also addressing the transit issues that might be out there regarding safety. So, but no, there'll be no reduction in service or reduction in examination by community, just simply because of that.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions for Brad?
Yeah, I have a question. Janet Tice from Shirley. I noticed that, I think it was on your first slide, all of the other towns were noted as what, joint, and Shirley was the only one that was noted as partner. Can you
Mhm.
just repeat again what the difference is and why is Shirley the only partner community?
Um, I think it's just from what what I was able to put in that survey letter, I tried to distinguish what the difference was. Um, and as far as I can tell, really, if you apply as a partner, the town of Shirley could still apply for their own action plan grant, and they'll still be able to apply as their own lead applicant, and not get um, and I don't say kicked out, but if Shirley had put in they wanted to be a joint applicant, and then also put in an application for their own action plan, it'll be flagged by USDOT, and they won't accept both applications. They'll, you know, accept one or the other. But if you're a partner, you could still put in those two applications. So to me, it just seemed a bit of a way to try and get people to concentrate on what they wanted to do and make some type of commitment. It doesn't affect, as far as I'm concerned, whether or not how you're involved in the project program. The only other thing I could find out about or see the difference between joint and partner is there's a commitment, lack of a better term, statement or letter that all the joint applicants will need to sign. And then there's some reporting requirements later on, but that's all going to be handled by the consultant and by us. So I don't think it comes into play for communities there. So we're just assuming everybody's going to be a joint applicant just to make it simple for the proposal. But it's not going to affect what you get out of the program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Can I ask
that's
a
great.
question?
Go ahead.
Alice Lipdoff from Hubbardston, I'm sorry. It's a joint action plan. Are these going to be limited to improvements on state highways?
They're supposed to consider all road networks, all roads and everything.
Okay.
And that's where individual discussions with the communities comes into play. The consultant will have to. So it shouldn't be limited to the state roads. It'll be limited to all the roads within the community.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Brad. That's great information and great news. And thank you to DOT for that 20% match. That's really wonderful. Moving on to the contract status reports. I'm assuming, Brad, you're going to take this one too?
Yeah. Where do we stand? For the excuse me, FTA and MART, I don't have any real updates on there. We're still doing the same things we're doing, trying to finish up the program year. And George, I don't know if you have anything on the MART side that you'd like to talk about.
No, I don't have any update today.
Okay. Then moving on to the transportation 3C status report. The MPO will not be meeting this month. Typically, there'd be a meeting scheduled for 1 week after this, but there will be no MPO meeting this month. So the next one will be on October 19th at 1 p.m. The staff is currently working on various project tasks in order to close out the current program year. On October 1st, we'll begin the FFY 2023 program year that is currently budgeted at $927,038. That's up from the current program year budget of $747,979. So we've got a sizable bump in funds, and we'll be looking to meet all the requirements we put in our Unified Planning Work Program that was endorsed back in May. We also have successfully concluded our traffic count program. After months of problems trying to get interns and so forth, we were able to hire a consultant, Amos Engineering, and they completed about 60 plus traffic counts and turning movement counts for us. They submitted those to us and to Sherry. She's reviewed them for uploading to Mass DOT. They got it accomplished in just over a month, probably. Like I said, it was sometime in July. We gave them the go-ahead. So we paid approximately about $27,000 to them for this program year. From my calculations, I think that's about fairly comparable to what we'd have to do if we hired interns on our own, considering the number of hours they'd have to put in, the overhead rate, travel expenses we'd have to do, as well as all the supplies that we'd have to purchase, and as well as the staff supervision time that would be needed to keep them moving forward. So we're going to look at probably doing this again next year. Hopefully we can get the RFP out a lot sooner and maybe get some competitive bids. But I think it works well this year, especially from the staff's point of view. So we'll look at continue this in the next year. And then I had two handouts for your review. The first is from MassDOT. It's the Northern Tier Passenger Rail Study Newsletter for August 29th. The newsletter discusses the next phase in the development of the study, that being the development of potential service plans or alternatives for passenger rail service along the North Adams Greenfield Boston corridor. The alternatives development process will take a two-phase approach. In phase one, the team will develop two alternatives to show the type of service schedules that could be achieved through a lower investment level and a higher investment level. Then they plan on having a half-day public workshop in the fall of 2022 to review the two initial service plan alternatives and evaluation framework. Feedback received will be used to develop 4 additional service plan alternatives as part of a phase 2. When we receive further information on when this workshop is being held and how you can register for it, we'll post it on our MRPC website under announcements. And if it's before the next MJTC, we'll make it as part of the handouts too. The second handout is basically for informational purposes. Back in the spring of this year, we submitted an application to the RAISE funding program, or RAISE standing for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. We submitted one last year too. This was a follow-up based upon some feedback from USDOT on our previous application. And we were looking to try and secure some funding to conduct an analysis and design for a new interchange on Route 2 at South Athol Road in Athol. We applied for $1 million. That was the minimum award amount that you could apply for our planning grant to do that, to look at the situation and further analyze the area in terms of environmental issues and so forth, and then move on to actual design of the interchange. However, we did not receive the funding requested. We found out that there were only 2 projects in Massachusetts that were selected, and they're highlighted on the handout. One award is for $20,250,000 that went to MassDOT for the Linway Multimodal Corridor. And the second went to the City of Boston for $20 million for the Roxbury Resilient Transportation Corridors. So I think no real surprise there. All the money went east to Boston area. So the program is going to continue, and we'll see if we can, we're going to talk with Athol about some other possible funding opportunities and see if we continue to try and apply to this program to get an answer for the community. But I just wanted to let people know that this is where some of their money is going in terms of federal dollars. And that's all I have on transportation and Mass DOT.
Thank you very much, Brad. I think if we don't have any questions there, we can move forward to our date for our next JTC meeting. I think is going to be Wednesday, October 12th. Is that correct?
Well, based on prior discussions, we had decided that we'd want to go every other month till the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right.
So
okay.
If we're up for it, we will not meet in October, and the next meeting will be Wednesday, November 9th.
Okay.
At 2:30.
Okay.
And if
is
some
there any
emergency
other
occurs where we need to meet in October, I will let everybody know.
Okay. Is there anything else that folks want to bring forward before we adjourn today's meeting? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
A second?
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I thank you all for attending today, and thank you, Brad, for reminding me that we're off next month. Everybody enjoy this nice fall weather, and hopefully the rain is the drought buster. If you have a chance, take a look at 5 Corners on Martha's Vineyard for the last couple of days. You'll be glad you don't live there. But have a good day, everybody, and thank you for attending today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.